We're back again with Representative Tillis, and we're going to speak about the growth in, we expect anyway, the growth in North Carolina to take place a lot faster than most of the other states. I think we have a lot more to offer in this state. How do you feel about it? What is the feeling up at Raleigh?
You know, the feeling in Raleigh is sometime next year we'll make a turn and we'll get back to that growth that we've come to expect in the state. I think that we'll be back to net incremental growth population of somewhere between 5 and 8%, looking out 2 years, 3 years. We'll do that because people just want to relocate here. We've got a lot of retirees wanting to move to the state, so we want to make sure our tax policies are there to actually encourage that, because they're a very low impact net increment of population. It's something we really want. That's a key part of growth.
Explain, a lot of people don't understand that.
Talking about growth, and well, if you take a look at it, the average senior citizen, what we find out, I mentioned it earlier, they call them halfbacks. There are usually a lot of people who found the tax situation in New York or New Jersey untenable. They moved to Florida and found out it's a little bit hot, not quite what they wanted, and then they moved back to North Carolina. That's why we call them halfbacks. They come halfway back. But they're a great and very important segment of our population growth. They tend to be reasonably solid financially, in many cases high net worth. They're very low impact on services. They tend to have fewer cars, drive together. They tend not to have great or school-age children, so it's less of an impact on schools. They tend to have substantially reduced impact on criminal justice system, very low crime rate. So it's an ideal element in a balanced portfolio. You wouldn't want only seniors moving back, but in good balance, it really produces a great balanced community, and one that's far more sustainable.
So growth in North Carolina, really, if we can get a balance of seniors in, okay, I guess that's really what kept Florida successful, okay, because all the seniors are going down there, so they didn't have to build as many schools, okay. I guess they have health issues down there as well, though.
Right.
So that really is the ideal situation. You get some more senior citizens down for all the reasons that you stated. I know a lot of people like to retire here, and a lot of people are coming here instead of going down to Florida, because Florida's, like you said, a little bit too hot, a lot of crime down there in the Miami area, so it's lost kind of its luster.
You know, I've lived all over the eastern seaboard, from as far north as New Hampshire, and I was born in Florida.
It's too cold.
In Florida, and I know I'm probably a little bit biased, but I've had an opportunity to live anywhere in the world, and I picked North Carolina to plant my roots. I think a lot of people look at this state from the mountains, Piedmont to the ocean, and say, boy, there's a lot to offer here. So we have to have, you know, there's tax policy involved, the death tax, estate taxes, the limits and constraints on trust. All of those things are things we have to look at, because they will affect who will come and live in North Carolina.
Absolutely.
So we're working on that. At the same time, we're trying to attract an industrial base that makes sense. We have a high-tech sector emerging in Research Triangle that is excellent. It's going to produce a good, steady demand for skilled jobs. And I'm not just talking about college jobs. I'm talking about skilled labor from community colleges and trades. You see the same thing in our area. We're trying to focus on making this a hub for the energy industry. Now that we have Duke, and through its acquisition, such a prominent player in the energy industry, and other energy construction companies that have moved here, a lot of people wouldn't realize we have a construction company that's focused primarily on the power industry that has 1,000 employees here. They had almost none 5 years ago. Right, yeah. Right downtown. High-paying jobs, quality jobs. We're looking at, there's an EPIC Center, a new building coming online at University of North Carolina at Charlotte, that is energy production, and it's focused on all aspects of energy production.
It's actually causing us to take pause and start over again, and take advantage of the opportunities that we missed because we were just so busy working, okay? And we overlooked a lot of things. And there's a lot that North Carolina has to offer, and especially the climate, that, like, from the mountains to the beach. And people don't realize that. We have beaches and we have mountains, and we can go skiing. And there's a lot of open land, and we could do a lot of beautiful parks, the biotech campus that you mentioned, and also the Triangle. And I think that's what's the attractiveness of North Carolina. When I researched where I was going to move, that's why I picked North Carolina, because I thought there was a lot of growth potential, a lot of potential in general, low taxes. So the state has a lot going for it. And I actually like the way they regulate things. They're aggressive but not overly aggressive. It's starting to get a little overly aggressive, but we'll talk about it in another session. Let's get involved in unions. Again, an extreme. Some unions go to the extreme in trying to, under the guise of protecting their workers. I know you have some thoughts on unions. What do you feel about unions?
I think the widespread organization of labor in this state would be devastating, and it would put us behind. And it would not put us behind necessarily with our neighbors. It would put us behind on a global basis.
Do you feel they have a place in the workforce?
You know, candidly, I think some of what they represent has a place, but I believe that unions need to reinvent themselves before I can be convinced that they are good for our state. They need to find some way to deal with the real world. We're no longer, and I had a discussion with a labor representative. I've had an ongoing dialogue with them. And one of the things that North Carolina has is a free choice state. It allows you to not be in a union, to join a union if that workforce is actually organized. Federal government's trying to take that away. This labor organizer said, well, if we did that, if we made all the states that are free choice states not free choice, then it'd be open competition with all those labor union states, so it'd be all fair. I said, I'm not worried about competing with Virginia. I'm worried about competing with Bangalore, Manila,
That's correct.
Mexico, Toronto. If you suddenly create an even less competitive environment than we have today, then all you are doing is hastening the day where we won't make anything that can be made and shipped abroad. And we have to look at that. So I think unions need to reinvent themselves and say, what do we really need to do today? We have workplace safety that I would put up against any industrialized nation. That was one of the primary reasons labor unions came into existence. People were dying on the job. There was no recourse. There was no legal protections. Those things are there. And you would be hard-pressed to say that you need a labor union in a 50 or 60 person shop to save those people, by and large. The ones who are not dealing with it today are breaking the law. What we need are law enforcement people to go into those businesses, not labor. But we do have to look at things that are legitimate complaints. You know, do we have proper recourse across the state for employees who may object to their treatment? Do we have other safeguards that we need to look at? I buy that. But that is far short of a small business someday finding out that the 50 or 60 employees that he's employed for years have decided they want to take his company in a slightly different direction. And that's what labor unions could do to the state. And the small businesses would be the first to fall just after government employees.
And since small businesses really are going to be, I believe, the backbone of this economy coming back, that would be devastating.
It would be devastating. The number of small businesses in this state are the economic engine of the state. Large corporations are only accountable for less than a third of our total state revenues. Small businesses are our lifeblood. We are talking about potentially devastating some of the businesses. They simply won't be able to operate with the increased cost, and other ones will have to pass that cost on to the consumers, and in our case, to the taxpayers.
Well, this has been an unbelievably interesting discussion. I think we may have to have you come back if you don't mind spending some time with us.
It'd be my pleasure.
But Tom, thank you very much for coming back. And it's Representative Thom Tillis from the 98th District in North Carolina. Thanks very much for watching, folks. I hope you got some great information from this show. Thank you.